Right now, at this exact moment, trillions of dollars in global commerce are surging across open wires around the world. Securing that commerce requires protecting entire networks of data from unauthorized access, exploitation, and outright destruction. Academic standards define this field, information security, as the defense of systems against everything from casual perusal to deliberate disruption. E-commerce security takes those broad protective principles and applies them directly to the mechanisms of buying and selling online. The reality of how often those defenses fail is tracked by metrics like the CSI Computer Crime and Security Survey, which monitors breaches across major U.S. institutions. The scale of the threat tracked by these surveys is massive, spanning from individual compromised bank accounts all the way up to vulnerable national infrastructure. Looking at this documentation, attacks are formally categorized into high-level threats, including corporate espionage that plagues global businesses and state-sponsored political warfare. The primary targets are institutions holding the most valuable data, specifically massive financial centers, sprawling medical networks, and university databases. Because a server in one country can be breached by an attacker on another continent in milliseconds, investigating these crimes creates an absolute jurisdictional nightmare. This lack of safety isn't a glitch in the software. It is a systemic byproduct of how the internet was designed to operate. To understand why these systems are so difficult to defend, we have to look at the underlying architecture of the web. This slide shows the domain name system, or DNS. Its job is simple. It acts as a translator, converting human-readable web addresses into numeric routing codes. Those numeric codes are IP addresses, uniquely identifying every single device connected to the network. These routing protocols were built decades ago by researchers who prioritized fast, efficient communication. They assumed the people connecting to the network were trustworthy. As a result, if a packet of data travels from one IP address to another without encryption, any node along that path can easily intercept and read it. In security terms, risk is simply the probability that an attacker will find and utilize one of those open transmission paths. The open, trusting architecture is the vulnerability. The person actively searching for that opening is the threat. When you have billions of IP addresses pinging each other every second, the probability of an unprotected connection being discovered becomes a mathematical certainty. This is why the study of e-commerce requires methodically identifying the specific technical attacks designed to exploit this architecture. Attackers systematically probe the access points, map the communication lines, and stress test the networks. Because the foundational layer of the internet assumes trust, verification and security have to be artificially layered on top. The motivation for finding these structural flaws has evolved. It is no longer about lone hackers seeking notoriety. It is about organized syndicates maximizing profit. This financial motive has created a sprawling internet underground economy. These underground markets operate as highly efficient e-commerce platforms, selling stolen credit cards, social security records, and bank details like commodities. A key tool for gathering this inventory is keystroke logging, capturing the exact sequence of keys a user presses to steal passwords in real time. Keyloggers fall under the broader definition of malware, the malicious software engineered specifically to infiltrate systems. Sometimes the data doesn't even need to be hacked from the outside. The dynamic nature of e-commerce systems makes authorized employees, insiders, an equally dangerous risk factor. The supply chain is streamlined. A user types their credentials, the malware captures it, and the data flows directly into an underground storefront for resale. This represents a total professionalization of cybercrime. To scale their operations, syndicates deploy botnets, armies of infected computers, to automatically scan billions of IP addresses, searching for those unencrypted weaknesses. The lucrative nature of this data, combined with the ability to launch attacks from servers located in completely different legal jurisdictions, makes shutting down these markets exceptionally hard. The financial incentive provided by the underground economy guarantees that technical vulnerabilities will always be actively hunted. But attackers don't always need to compromise the routing protocols or deploy complex botnets. They can just target the human operating the machine. The academic definition for this is social engineering, a non-technical attack that uses a ruse to trick someone into compromising their own network. A dominant form of this is phishing, where criminals perfectly mimic the branding of a trusted company to steal a customer's identity. Phishing is highly effective because it ignores the software entirely and exploits human psychology instead. While malware requires a technical flaw in the code, social engineering requires a lapse in the operator's judgment. The legal outcome of these tactics is fraud, the use of deceitful practices to deprive a business or consumer of their property. Attackers rely on spam as the delivery vehicle, blanketing thousands of inboxes with these fraudulent requests, knowing they only need a fraction of a percent to succeed. Even the most heavily encrypted network architecture fails if the user is tricked into unlocking the front door and handing over their credentials. Between automated exploits targeting the DNS layer and psychological tactics targeting human users, the attack surface for modern commerce is vast. This leads to a necessary conclusion, highlighted here. It is simply not possible to stop computer crimes. Because absolute prevention is mathematically impossible, organizations must shift toward mitigation. This makes business continuity planning critical to survive the inevitable breach. Security becomes a high-level business decision, forcing organizations to ask if their security budgets match actual risk, and demanding they establish rigid, actionable plans. Establishing strong security requires technical firewalls, strict employee policies, and robust recovery protocols. Information assurance principles must be applied uniformly across the entire enterprise to manage this ongoing risk. When you combine technical controls, human policy, and business continuity, you create a zone of operational resilience. This layered defense ensures that even in a hostile environment, the transaction completes safely. E-commerce security is not the absence of threats. It is the design of a system robust enough to withstand an inherently vulnerable world.